Have you ever felt like sadness isn't just a mood but part of who you are? Like a heavy cloud that never fully lifts, not dark enough to be diagnosed as depression, but enough to make life feel dull, tiring, and joyless? This is dysthymia, often called persistent depressive disorder, a silent shadow many live with but few understand. Unlike major depression, dysthymia lingers for years, sometimes decades. It's not about feeling sad for a day or two. It's a chronic low-level sadness that becomes woven into your personality, making it hard to even recognize it as an illness. Today we'll dive deep into what dysthymia really is, why normalizing constant sadness can be dangerous, and most importantly, how to recognize it before it controls your life. Dysthymia, also known as persistent depressive disorder, is a long-lasting form of depression that quietly affects millions of people around the world. Unlike major depressive episodes, which can be intense but temporary, dysthymia is a constant, low-level sadness that lingers for years, sometimes even decades. This persistent feeling of sadness is often subtle and doesn't completely overwhelm a person, which leads many to mistake it for just a gloomy personality or normal mood swings. Because dysthymia symptoms are less severe but chronic, it's often overlooked or dismissed, both by those experiencing it and by others around them. People may say things like, "You're just being negative," or, "That's just how you are," which can make someone feel misunderstood and isolated. But the truth is, dysthymia is a real mental health condition that impacts mood, energy, and motivation over time. It quietly steals joy and makes it hard to feel genuinely happy or hopeful. Understanding what dysthymia really is, beyond the myths and misunderstandings, is the first step toward recognizing it and seeking help. While major depression hits hard and often comes in episodes that may last weeks or months, dysthymia is a more subtle, persistent condition. Instead of intense lows, people with dysthymia experience a chronic low mood that can drag on for years. This ongoing sadness might not stop someone from going about their daily routine, but it quietly saps their energy, motivation, and ability to enjoy life. Unlike major depressive disorder, which can include severe symptoms like suicidal thoughts and deep despair, dysthymia often flies under the radar because its symptoms are less intense but more enduring. This makes it harder to recognize, both for the individual and for doctors, and can lead to people suffering in silence without proper diagnosis or treatment. One of the biggest challenges with dysthymia is that its symptoms are often subtle and invisible to others, and even to the person experiencing them. Unlike major depression, which may come with dramatic signs like crying spells or complete withdrawal, dysthymia manifests as a persistent background fog that dulls emotions and colors every day with a sense of gloom. People with dysthymia often describe feeling tired all the time, even without physical exertion. They might struggle to find motivation to do things they once enjoyed or feel a lingering sense of hopelessness that never quite lifts. Irritability and low self-esteem are common companions, creating an internal dialogue filled with self-doubt and criticism. Because these symptoms aren't as intense or as visible, they are frequently misunderstood by friends, family, and even healthcare providers. This invisibility leads many to believe they should just snap out of it, or try harder, increasing feelings of isolation and shame. The slow, creeping nature of dysthymia means that people can live with it for years without realizing they have a treatable condition, robbing them of joy and fulfillment quietly but relentlessly. One of the most deceptive aspects of dysthymia is how easily it becomes part of someone's identity. Because it lasts for so long, often beginning in adolescence or early adulthood and continuing for years, many people assume that their low mood, constant fatigue, and lack of motivation are just who they are. They may say things like, "I've always been this way. I'm just not a happy person. I'm just not the type to get excited about things." This normalization is dangerous. It leads people to live their entire lives believing that joy, peace, and emotional stability are not meant for them. They stop seeking help because they don't even recognize that they're struggling with a treatable condition. Instead, they blame themselves for not being more productive, more social, or more positive. Over time, this quiet form of depression slowly chips away at one's confidence and dreams. Relationships suffer, opportunities are missed, and self-worth erodes, all under the false belief that it's simply a personality trait, rather than a mental health issue. Recognizing that this persistent sadness is not part of your personality, but a condition that can be treated, is a turning point. It's the moment you stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "How can I heal?" Dysthymia doesn't just appear out of nowhere. Often, it's rooted in a combination of biological, psychological, and environmental factors, many of which are subtle and long-standing. Because the symptoms are not intense or overwhelming, people rarely stop to ask why they feel this way. but understanding the origin can be the first step to healing. Some individuals develop dysthymia after going through early emotional neglect, childhood trauma, or growing up in an environment where emotional expression was discouraged. These experiences teach the brain to stay in a low-energy, guarded state, a kind of quiet defense mechanism that never turns off. Others may carry genetic vulnerabilities or imbalances in brain chemistry, particularly in neurotransmitters like serotonin or dopamine, which regulate mood. Life stressors, such as chronic illness, unstable relationships, or long-term financial strain, can also wear down emotional resilience over time. In these cases, the person might never have experienced a major depressive episode, but instead, gradually slipped into a constant, low-grade depression that feels like it's just life. The tricky part is that these causes rarely look like crises. They often go unnoticed, unacknowledged, and untreated. This is what makes dysthymia so dangerous. It's built quietly over years until the person no longer remembers what emotional balance actually feels like. Recognizing that there is a cause, even if hidden, is powerful. It shifts the mindset from, "this is just who I am," to, "this is something I can work through." Dysthymia doesn't usually crash into your life like a storm. It seeps in, quietly and persistently, until one day you realize that you haven't truly felt joy or peace in years. Because the symptoms are subtle, people often function normally. They go to work, maintain relationships, and carry out daily routines. But behind the scenes, there's a constant emotional fatigue, a lack of motivation, and a dull sense of hopelessness that colors everything. You stop dreaming big. You say no to social invitations without even thinking why. You become emotionally distant, not because you want to be, but because you don't have the energy to connect. You may struggle with self-criticism, feel like you're a burden to others, or wonder if you're simply bad at life. Over time, you begin to shape your entire life around the limitations of dysthymia. You choose the safe path, avoid risks, and settle for less, not because you want to, but because you genuinely believe you're not capable of more. And the worst part? You don't even question it. That's the danger. When you live with constant low mood, it becomes your normal. It robs you of your potential quietly without any dramatic collapse. You don't break down, you slowly fade out. Becoming aware of this invisible weight is the first spark of awakening. It's not weakness. It's not who you are. It's a condition that can be named, and once named, it can be faced. One of the most dangerous things about dysthymia is how easily it hides behind personality traits. People who live with it are often labeled as quiet, serious, introverted, or even pessimistic. These labels can stick for years, sometimes even becoming part of how the person sees themselves. But the truth is, many of these so-called personality traits are symptoms. Chronic low mood, lack of enthusiasm, irritability, and emotional numbness aren't personality, they're signs of an underlying condition. The reason this confusion happens is because dysthymia starts early and lingers. Someone might grow up with it, never knowing anything different. So they, and everyone around them, assume that's just who they are. Friends may describe them as deep or moody. Family might say they were always the serious one. Internally, they may come to believe that happiness is simply not for them. This belief is reinforced over time. Because the person is still functioning, going to work, raising kids, doing chores, no one suspects that there's a silent struggle going on. And if the person themselves brings it up, they may hear, "Everyone feels tired sometimes. Maybe you're just being negative." Or worse, "You've always been like this." This normalization of sadness is heartbreaking. It delays diagnosis, blocks support, and convinces people they are broken by nature, when in reality they are carrying a weight that can be lifted. Breaking this illusion requires awareness. It means asking brave questions like, what if this isn't who I am? What if it's something I've been living with for too long? And that question alone can open the door to healing. One of the most silent victims of dysthymia is human connection. Not because the person doesn't care, but because they feel disconnected from themselves. And when you can't fully access your own emotions, it becomes harder to connect with others. People living with dysthymia often struggle to express joy, vulnerability, or affection. It's not that they're cold. They may deeply love their partner, family, or friends. But something inside feels muted, as if every emotion has been turned down a few notches. That emotional flatness can make them seem distant, uninterested, or even cold to the people around them. In romantic relationships, this often creates confusion. The partner might say, "You never seem excited to see me. Why don't you open up?" Or worse, "I don't think you love me anymore." The truth? They do. But dysthymia wraps their feelings in a fog, making emotional closeness feel exhausting or even impossible. And over time that builds distance. In friendships, they may cancel plans often, not because they don't care, but because they're emotionally depleted. They may rarely initiate contact, not out of disinterest, but because their brain is in survival mode, and even simple social energy feels like too much. The saddest part is that they may blame themselves. They may believe, I'm just a bad partner. I push people away. I don't deserve connection. But these beliefs are symptoms, not truths. When someone with dysthymia gets help, it's not just their mood that improves. Their world begins to open up. They laugh more. They feel more. They reconnect. And relationships, the very ones they thought they were doomed to lose, can be rebuilt with depth and warmth. One of the cruelest misunderstandings about dysthymia is the assumption that the person is simply lazy, unmotivated, or not trying hard enough. From the outside, it can look that way. The person may sleep more than usual, move slowly, struggle to start tasks, or seem emotionally numb. But what most people don't see is the invisible weight pressing down on every decision, every action, every morning. Dysthymia isn't a choice. It's not about lack of discipline. It's about a brain that has been surviving in low-power mode for so long that even getting out of bed can feel like climbing a mountain. This kind of depression often hides behind functioning. The person might still go to work, pay bills, take care of family, but inside, everything feels hollow. They may complete tasks but without a sense of joy or reward. They may socialize but leave feeling more drained than fulfilled. They're not thriving, they're enduring. Now imagine being told again and again, you just need to be more positive, or you're always tired, or why don't you do something with your life? These comments aren't just unhelpful, they reinforce the shame. They deepen the self-doubt. They make the person believe the lie, maybe I really am just lazy. But dysthymia has nothing to do with laziness. In fact, people who live with this condition often have incredible inner strength. They fight a quiet, invisible battle every single day, and many do it without ever asking for help. Recognizing the difference between a symptom and a character flaw is the first step toward compassion and healing, because no one chooses to live under a gray sky forever. Some people live with emotional pain for so long that it stops feeling like pain, it starts feeling like normal. That's one of the most dangerous effects of dysthymia, the slow erosion of what life should feel like. When sadness becomes part of the background noise of everyday life, it's easy to stop questioning it. You wake up feeling low, move through your day feeling numb, and go to bed hoping tomorrow feels different. But it rarely does. Eventually, you stop expecting anything better. You adjust. You adapt. But adapting to constant emotional suffering is not healing, it's survival. This silent endurance can go on for years. And because the symptoms aren't loud or dramatic, most people never seek help. They might even convince themselves, this is just who I am. But it's not who they are, it's who they became to survive an untreated mental condition. The longer dysthymia is ignored, the deeper its roots grow. It can reshape your identity, your relationships, your goals. You stop dreaming. You settle. You hide behind phrases like, I'm just tired, or, I've always been this way. But the truth is, no one is meant to live in permanent gray. Recognizing that you've grown used to emotional pain isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It means you've endured. But it also means it's time to imagine more. More joy. More connection. More peace. Because life isn't supposed to feel like this. And just because pain feels familiar doesn't mean it's supposed to stay. Living with dysthymia can feel like carrying a hidden burden every day, but there are ways to lighten that load and reclaim some control over your emotional world. While dysthymia is chronic, that doesn't mean hopeless. Small, consistent steps can make a significant difference in managing symptoms and improving quality of life. One key strategy is developing a routine. Structure helps create predictability, which can counteract the fog of low mood. This doesn't mean rigid schedules but gentle anchors like regular wake-up times, balanced meals, and scheduled breaks. Even simple things like making your bed or going for a short walk can build momentum. Another important approach is reaching out for support. Isolation can worsen feelings of emptiness and despair, so connecting with trusted friends, family, or mental health professionals can offer relief and perspective. Sometimes just being heard makes a world of difference. Mindfulness and grounding techniques can also help by bringing attention to the present moment, rather than getting stuck in negative thought loops. Practices like deep breathing, meditation, or gentle yoga encourage a calm mind and foster resilience. Finally, self-compassion is vital. Living with dysthymia means recognizing that your struggles are real and valid, and that you deserve patience and kindness from yourself. Avoid harsh self-judgment and celebrate small victories. While dysthymia can be exhausting, Incorporating these strategies can help manage symptoms and nurture hope. Healing isn't linear, but every step counts. Understanding when to seek professional help for dysthymia is crucial because this condition, while often overlooked, can deeply affect your quality of life. If you notice that persistent low mood is interfering with your daily functioning, relationships, or overall happiness, it might be time to reach out. A mental health professional can offer diagnosis, therapy options, and possibly medication to help manage symptoms. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is especially effective in helping people reframe negative thought patterns that sustain dysthymia. Medications such as antidepressants may also be recommended, depending on the severity. It's important to remember that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Many people delay treatment because they believe their feelings are just part of who they are, or that they should handle it alone. But mental health is just as important as physical health, and professional support can make a real difference. If therapy or medication isn't immediately accessible, support groups or trusted loved ones can also provide valuable relief and understanding while you explore options. Ultimately, the first step is recognizing that you deserve help, and taking action to find it. If you or someone you know has been feeling this persistent sadness for a long time, remember, you don't have to face it alone. Seeking help is a brave and important step toward healing. Share this video to raise awareness, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights on mental health. Your journey matters and support is always available.